Hi there, and thanks for coming along. This here is going to be the 11th episode in my series 100 Casts, in which I will be casting 100 games of League of Legends, mostly for the purpose of practicing my shoutcasting ability. So, as a disclaimer, since I am only on number 11 now, and I'm not altogether too incredibly practiced at shoutcasting, there may be some mistakes here and there in the video. If you'd like to have one of your replays featured in this series, just check the description. There's instructions there on how to get that accomplished. And, enjoy the video. Alrighty, well, let's get started then. On the purple side, actually, swapping down the camera apparently, on the blue side, we have a bot lane duo of Tristana and Sona with a mid lane Yasuo, a top lane Volibear. You don't see Volibear in the top lane very often. Usually he's in the jungle, not in the lane at all, but it can be done. He does have an execute on his bite, I believe it's the third. With his W, every third auto attack, he can then proc a bite, which does an execute based off of how much health they have missing. And in the jungle, we have Jarvan. Jarvan the Fourth is actually the player which sent in this replay. Thank you very much to that Jarvan then. I'll tell you his name at the end of the video because I can't see it right now. He's not on screen. On the purple side, we have Aatrox in the top lane against that Volibear, a Malphite in the mid lane going AP Malphite. The Yasuo here getting jumped on by the enemy team. Didn't realize that they were walking up to the bush, perhaps was in the shop or alt-tabbed out and gets caught by 4 members of the enemy team in the bush, snared up by the Morgana, and the Lee Sin takes him out for the first blood, which Lee Sin has got to be happy with, Lee Sin being a very powerful champion. Early in the game, getting that extra gold early in the game is certainly going to help him out, allow him to snowball this game in purple team's favor, turning that extra gold into far more effective ganks later on in the game. At about between now and about the 20-minute mark is when Lee Sin really shines, and if he can amplify that with a bit of early gold, it can be really, really oppressive on the enemy team. But, anyways, back to the team comps. We do have Lee Sin in the jungle, as I've mentioned, who's going to be going for that early game pressure. And in the bot lane, we have a Morgana and Lucian for purple team. The Malphite in the mid lane using the new Mecha Malphite skin, which looks really cool in my opinion. Some people have been complaining about how they don't like it. It looks too much like a toy, too childish, but I rather like it, though I do agree that it does not look very much like the splash art. The splash art is very menacing, very large, and very grandiose, whereas the in-game art does look a bit more like a child's toy. It's still very well done, but it looks more like a Transformers Malphite skin than a Mecha Malphite skin, so I can see where the complaints are coming from. The Aatrox there feeling the bite of the Volibear up in the top lane, who does that extra damage because the Aatrox was taken low by previous auto attacks. Aatrox as well using the Mecha skin. I haven't seen very much of that one, so I don't quite have an opinion formed on it yet, seeing as the camera hasn't shown us Aatrox very long, but I take that back as Volibear now engaging onto the Aatrox, flashing forward, going for the last auto attack. Doesn't seem to have got it though, as we swap down to the bot lane where Morgana landed a snare in the enemy support, but gets quite low herself, forced to flash away as the Tristana and the Sona are able to output more damage than the Lucian and the Morgana here. Volibear not seeming to get that kill in the top lane, did burn flash for it, so he's down the flash now, and Aatrox is going to be able to sustain back up with a lifesteal from the Doran's Blade, as well as the passive life gain from his W procs on every third hit. The Volibear running at the Aatrox, who got a bit too close, pops his passive, igniting the Volibear as he goes down, though, does come out of the passive, getting a kill for himself as he does so from the Ignite tick, which was cutting the Volibear's passive healing in half. Both of those champions having quite good passives for surviving in one-on-one duels when they get low on health. The Aatrox having the revive passive, and the Volibear having a passive which, when he gets too low on health, allows him to regenerate 30% of his health, I believe. The Volibear teleporting back into lane and immediately running for the Aatrox. Perhaps it wasn't the best idea, though. He brings the Aatrox down quite low with the execute, but the Aatrox has more levels and thus more health and more damage on his E, the Blades of Torment, and is able to take out the Volibear once more in quick succession. 2 kills there in the space of about a minute and a half for the Aatrox, who is 2-0 in this lane now, as well as having a CS and a level lead, is certainly going to be sitting pretty in that top lane for himself. Yasuo in the mid lane getting bullied out by the AP Malphite. Malphite's Q has a 1-to-1 or 0.9-to-1, very high AP ratio scaling, and so AP Malphite has some pretty terrifying poke in lane as long as he can practice good mana management. because his mana costs are quite high, which is why AP Malphite is usually not played, because his mana costs are rather prohibitive. But if you can pull it off, if you have good mana management in lane and are able to last hit effectively with the low damage auto attacks that he does and get the mana back from the Doran's Ring, which he did purchase at the beginning, you can certainly pull it off, because that poke is oppressive when used correctly. The Volibear running forward, slowing the Aatrox and flipping him back, executing the Aatrox, but the Aatrox gets the third proc of the passive on his W, and because he's low on health, does get back a whole bunch of health there, and is life-stealing back up off of this huge minion wave that Volley has pushing towards him. He's going to have an easy time regenning back up that health in the top lane from that duel, and is still going to be ahead here as the Yasuo uses his Wind Wall to block out some of the poke from the Malphite, but the Malphite's Q is a much shorter cooldown than Wind Wall, so Malphite's certainly going to be able to line some more poke into him as Yasuo dashes in. The Malphite's E being a very, very effective tool against the Yasuo in this lane, though. It's going to slow his attack speed, which in turn will actually lengthen the cooldown on Yasuo's Q, because the cooldown on his Q scales off of attack speed and not cooldown reduction. So that's actually an interesting little mechanic that the matchup between Malphite and Yasuo is going to have, and is going to swing it a bit in favor of the Malphite, who has much more poke in this lane, as well as the ability to inhibit Yasuo's damage output by lowering his attack speed pretty effectively with his E. As we see Malphite and Yasuo going at it again, the Malphite coming out just a little bit on top out of that trade, though not incredibly so. Still, the lane could still go either way at this point, neither one of the laners having much of a lead on the other, though I take that back actually. Looking at the CS now, Yasuo has 30 to Malphite's 19, so Yasuo really actually pulling out ahead in this mid lane, but down in the bot we see a duel going on between the two bot lane comps as the Tristana leaping in does get exhausted and then snared by the Morgana, takes a whole bunch of damage from the Lucian, forced to flash away after the snare, and the Lucian going low to the Sona's Q. I don't think Sona has her flash up. She does manage to sidestep the binding here. Might go down still though, as the Lucian flashes in and uses as much damage as he can to take out the Sona. The Aatrox going down up in the top lane, though, got a bit too cocky and tried to dive under the tower onto the Volibear. The Volibear, having that flip, though, was able to CC him long enough to keep him off of him. And that's a kill going over to blue team, but now there's 5 for purple team, who are about 2.8k in the lead, and are sitting at 5 kills to the 1 for blue team, which is on the Volibear up in the top lane. Jarvan down in the bot lane getting hit by the Morgana's snare. The Morgana, though, being a bit close to the tower, does take a tower shot for her troubles. But both of them just going to be backing. Actually, no, the Jarvan trying to flag and drag onto the Morgana, but the Morgana, having gone through most of her backing animation, even though she got hit by the Dragonlance, is still able to finish the recall, because there is a point towards the end of the recall where it simply cannot be interrupted no matter what happens to you unless you are to die, in which case you just get to recall more quickly. Dying, when looked at correctly, is really only a way of getting back to base really quickly. That's the optimistic way to look at dying in League of Legends. In the top lane, the Aatrox has a level advantage on the Volibear and his passive back. The Volibear flings him back into the tower, and the Aatrox panics a little bit and flashes out of the tower range. I'm not sure he had to do that there, but the Aatrox did decide to. Maybe he thought that the Jarvan was nearby and coming in for a gank. As down in the bot lane, Lucian takes some harass from the combined damage of Tristana and Sona while his AD carry was while his support was on the way back to lane, and he was alone in lane for a little bit. So he did take some harass there as he went up to try and farm by himself, but nothing too serious. He's going to be able to recover from that. Lee Sin here in the mid lane, ganking for the Malphite, kicks the Yasuo, but is under tower for way too long. The Yasuo gets the kill, but Malphite kills the Yasuo right after. The double buff transfer is complete. The Malphite in the mid lane now has double buffs, and that is 6 kills for purple team to the 3 kills now in blue team, as Jarvan shows up in the mid lane, and the double buff transfer goes one more time over to the Jarvan. The Bear and the Aatrox up in the top lane are going at it one more time. The Aatrox's passive gets popped, and so does the Volibear's. So they're on a fairly even footing now, but Aatrox is going to be life-stealing back up off of these minions, whereas Volibear has no other way aside from his passive, which has already been burned, to gain health back. The Sona, walking up a bit too close, does take a Q and then a empowered auto attack from that Lucian, it would probably be very useful for me to learn the name of Lucian's Q, seeing as Lucian is being picked quite often nowadays. So I will work on that for the next time that I am casting a Lucian game. I guarantee you I will know the name of the Q that time. As the Aatrox is leaping in onto the Volibear under the tower, but underestimates the Volibear's damage and goes down to the execute on the Volibear's W bite. The Yasuo and the Malphite fighting it out. Yasuo dashing around to a few minions and then walking away. The trade having gone a little bit in Malphite's favor, I'd say there, actually. As the duel continues in the mid lane with Lee Sin coming up behind the Yasuo. The Yasuo not knowing he's there, though, walking up to the farm, flashing away as soon as he sees the Lee Sin, trying to dash through, ulting onto the Lee Sin after knocking him up with his Q, but the Lee Sin having none of that as soon as he comes down out of the air after the Yasuo ult. Does kick the Yasuo, and the kick provides enough damage to just burst him down and kill him right on the spot there, right after Yasuo's ult ends. And that is a kill going over to Lee Sin, who is 2-1-2 at this point and has a Spirit of the Elder Lizard bot for himself, as opposed to the Jarvan, who really only has the components of that at this point. The Tristana and the Sona rushing forward onto the Morgana, who's taken quite low. Flashes away, though. She might survive here. It looks like she's probably going to survive here. The Jarvan flag and drags in, but gets bound by the snare from the Morgana, who still is alive at fairly low health behind the rest of her teammates in a fairly safe position. As Purple Team now, with Malphite coming down out of the mid lane, is going to be making some moves onto the enemy bot lane, as Jarvan is forced to flag and drag over the wall away from the Malphite, who comes out of the tri-bush and lands his Q and his E onto him, doing some pretty decent damage. The Malphite, having a Seeker's Arm Guard and a Doran's Ring at this point, is going to have a good amount of AP, and he scales much better off AP than Magic Penetration, seeing as his scaling is incredibly high and his base damages are not all that high, whereas champions with high base damages benefit more from Magic Pen than they do from AP, than pure AP. Malphite is on the pure AP spectrum of that magic damage scale. The Lucian taking a few tower hits there as he lands a Q onto both members of the enemy bot team. The Bear being knocked up by the Dark Flight of the Aatrox, but is going to pop his ult and then get a killing spree onto the Aatrox. This lane has really turned around. Earlier in the game, Aatrox got 2 kills onto the Volibear in the space of about a minute and a half. And now Volibear is 3-2 in the lane on a killing spree, coming back from that 0-2 position earlier on in the game to just get 3 kills in a row without dying at any point. The Sona ult being forced in the bot lane as Purple Team is trying a dive here. Yasuo coming down from the mid lane, though, might make this a bit of a dangerous situation for Purple Team. It is indeed, as the Volibear also teleported down, going to be chasing after the Lucian and clawing him. The Ignite and the Q from the Sona, however, is going to get the kill on the Lucian. The Lee Sin trying to throw his Q over the wall to the Dragon to try and jump to the Dragon to escape this blue team trio of Jarvan, Yasuo, and the Volibear, as the Jarvan flag and drags, knocking up the Lee Sin, and then Yasuo takes that opportunity to ult onto the Lee Sin, holding him in the air for a little bit longer and killing him, giving a killing spree over to the Jarvan, who is 3-0 at this point, as Blue Team, the 3 members of Blue Team who were chasing down the Lee Sin after killing the Lee Sin, do the Dragon and bring the gold right back exactly even, or almost exactly even actually. 100 gold, maybe 50 gold away from one team to the other. So not really much of a difference. They're pretty much exactly even, 18.9k gold on both sides. Purple Team, though, does have the lead in map control, at least, with a tower down in the bot lane, whereas Blue Team has no towers down at all. The Malphite landing a Q and then ulting onto the Yasuo. His ult also has a 1-to-1 ratio, so it does quite a bit of damage and allows him to ult. And if you're good enough, you can ult and throw out the DFG while ulting if you build a Deathfire Grasp and do quite a burst of damage on arrival, because the Deathfire Grasp increases the damage by 20% as well as doing a chunk of percentage damage itself on the activation. And so AP Malphite can be a real assassin, actually, which is weird considering the lore and the art style of Malphite. He doesn't really look too much like an assassin because he's a giant piece of granite, or in this case, a giant piece of iron and robotics, which is not exactly what you think of when you think of assassin. But it is true, AP Malphite can burst someone down very, very quickly and assassinate a squishy on the enemy team if he gets the opportunity to do so, especially if he builds a Deathfire Grasp, which it looks like this Malphite may be doing, as he does have the Fiendish Codex. The Malphite and the Yasuo once again in a duel with each other, the Yasuo landing his knockup onto the Malphite and then ulting and forcing the Malphite to flash away at low health, is now pushing up the mid lane, going to be autoing this tower, but Lee Sin is here, throws the Wind Wall on the other side of him. Perhaps that was a mistake, trying to block the Malphite's Q, but maybe his mouse twitched in the wrong direction, and he does go down to the Lee Sin, who lands the Sonic Wave and follows up on it to get the kill onto the Yasuo. Both teams here in the mid lane just going to be dancing around, trying to get each other's... The purple team trying to push in onto the blue team and get that mid lane turret, which is the only outer turret they don't have on the map now, having a 2-0 lead in turrets on the blue side. Lee Sin landing the Sonic Wave onto the Tristana, not going to be following up though. Too many members of blue team are around for that to be safe, and his Malphite and Morgana are both also wounded, in addition to he himself has some wounds. The Blades of Torment from Aatrox, who has roamed down from top lane, is going to land onto the Tristana, but the Tristana being able to rocket jump away fairly effectively from that, not going to be in much danger at all, just taking a tiny bit of poke from the Aatrox, who has roamed down from the top lane to the mid lane, has his passive, so might be going for a tower dive here, as Jarvan Flagon drags in, drops his ult onto the Morgana, who instantly flashes out of it. The Morgana then pops her own ult as Lee Sin goes down to the Sona dropping the ult onto most of the purple team that's there. The majority of the purple team is going down here, but Aatrox does still have his passive up. It looks like purple team's going to be winning this one, as the Malphite nearly goes down to a final tower shot as they tower dive a little bit onto the Jarvan to take him out, and that's a double kill for Aatrox. However, Volibear this whole time has been pushing the top lane, is going to be getting a turret on the board for blue team finally, as purple team is going to be getting another turret on the board for themselves, keeping their lead of 2 turrets overall. Actually, purple team backing away from the turret here. It's just Tristana has shown up with that static shiv completed, going to be able to clear out the minion waves pretty well, landing a few auto attacks onto the Lucian, critting him once or twice, but now they've pushed up another wave in the mid lane, and the Lucian and Aatrox are going to be able to take out the the blue turret, despite Tristana being there to try and defend it with her explosive shots and that static shiv. Oh, we have a moment of quiet here. Actually, perhaps we don't. Nope, the Aatrox not going to be following up on that, just landing the blades, the very edge of the lines of the Blades of Torment, his E onto the Volibear before simply walking away, not wanting to go in onto that. Despite having his passive, he was fairly low on health, and the Volibear fairly high on health. So it probably wouldn't have been a duel that he would have really wanted to take. But while we have a moment of quiet, I would like to talk about the top lane Volibear, which is a very, very interesting build. He's building quite a lot of health, because if I'm not mistaken, one of Volibear's abilities does scale in terms of damage with health. You'll have to pardon me that I don't know which one that is. I've played Volibear all of 3 times. I very, very rarely play top lane, and I occasionally play jungle, so I've never really had much opportunity to play the bear, seeing as my main role is in fact support when I do play. And so I don't actually know the exact stats of all of his abilities, but I do know for certain that there is one of his abilities which scales in terms of damage off of his max health, so Volibear can still have quite a bit of damage, even if he builds just tanky items, such as the Randuin's and the Doran's Shield and the Ruby Crystal, which this Volibear has picked up. The Randuin's being a very good pickup against purple team, who has an Aatrox on it, as well as a Lucian. The Lucian not relying on attack speed as much as other AD carries, but still, being an AD carry, does rely on attack speed. And the Aatrox relying quite a bit on attack speed. The Tristana getting a bit caught out of position there. Maybe pathing was sending her in a direction she didn't want to go. Is forced to flash away from the Lucian down in the bot lane, who uses the culling on her, gets quite a bit of damage onto her, as purple team is maneuvering around in the bot jungle of blue side, going to be sending 3 of their members down there. The Morgana trying to land a snare into the Tristana, but she just barely sidesteps it in time, thankfully, because the Lucian was there and able to follow up if the Morgana snare had hit. Volibear in the top lane, though, going to be split pushing again on the inner turret in the top lane this time, using his ult to send lightning arcing through all those minions with each hit so that he clears them out more quickly and can get more minions onto the tower to take it out with him. 4 members of purple team sitting in a bush here, waiting to ambush someone from blue team. No one's coming over to them, though, so they take the initiative and walk out themselves. The Morgana throwing out the binding. Jarvan being caught a bit out of position, going to drop his ult, but does not go down. Flags and drags out of the ult, which caught 4 members of purple team in it. Does eventually go down to the Lucians, who chasing after him, but the Lucian got split off from his team, chasing the Jarvan, and then gets knocked up The Lee Sin gets knocked up by the Yasuo, who ults onto him while Tristan is taking out the Morgana in the meantime. This is a disaster for Purple Team. A double kill going over to the Yasuo, who was previously so well shut down in the mid lane by that Malphite. The Yasuo getting 2 kills and coming back into this game now. That's going to be really nice for him, as the Volibear teleported in from the top lane after his split push and was able to help out his team in the end. That teleport really coming in handy. The Aatrox, not having taken teleport, went with Ignite for the lane. Did win the lane, at least early in the game, but the Volibear with the teleport is able to provide a bit more utility for his team in this mid-game teamfight here around the 20-minute mark or so, as Blue Team, after that victory in that teamfight, is going to be going for the dragon and getting a dragon for their own after the Purple Team got one earlier, if I recall correctly. So that's 1-to-1 in terms of dragons and 3-to-3 in terms of turrets, and 14-to-14 in terms of kills. So this is an incredibly even game right now. And that's actually quite an improvement for Blue Team over where they used to be back at the beginning of the match, when I believe the score was 6-1 in terms of kills and 1-0 in terms of turrets for a little while there on Purple Team's end, with Purple Team in the lead. The AP Malphite here at the blue buff, just going to be taking that for himself. Blue buff, very nice for AP Malphite. As I said earlier, his mana costs are prohibitive, and it allows him to spam out his Q more often, and the lower cooldown on his ult means he can use that DFG that he picked up, which I used my magical crystal ball to tell that he was going to be picking up, to assassinate the enemy squishies more often, the Yasuo and the Sona and the Tristana. He's going to be able to choose one of them, and if he's quick enough with the DFG and his ult and his Q and his E, pressing them in rapid succession, he's going to be able to 100-0 that target pretty much instantaneously. And if not instantaneously 100-0, at least bring them down to about 10-20% of their health bar. The Volibear and the Aatrox up in the top lane going at it. The Aatrox and Volibear both popping their ults. The Volibear's Execute, though, doing quite a lot of work for him in this fight, as the Aatrox's passive gets popped around the same time that Volibear's does. The Aatrox, not having Ignite up, though, is not able to mitigate any of the healing from that passive. Goes down to the Volibear in the end after flashing away, but to the Aatrox's teammates are here in the top lane and are going to shut down the Volibear, who was unstoppable after that kill. 3 of them up here, as Blue Team now is surrounding the Malphite and Lucian, the Malphite jumps in onto the Tristana, nearly taking her out, but doesn't quite, as the Sona ult stops him in his tracks, and the Tristana rocket jumps away. That is a shutdown for the Lucian, though, who does take out the Yasuo, but he looks like he's going to be dying himself. Lee Sin, why did you turn around? You couldn't save him. You should have just got away, but no, he turns around to try and help his Lucian friend and goes down for a double kill for the Sona, as Morgana has been found by Jarvan in the jungle here. That's nice. Jarvan in the jungle. It's alliterative right there. As the Sona gets... No, the Jarvan actually gets that kill onto Morgana. If Sona had gotten it, it would have been a triple kill for the support, and that would have been a little bit of a mistake, but still, 3 kills is 3 kills. They'll take it. As Blue Team now is ahead by about 3.8... About 4,000 gold. About 4,000 gold, I'd say. As the Aatrox is chasing after the Tristana, who was left all alone in the top lane, the rest of her team having backed. She goes down to a quick Blades of Torment, and then an auto attack from the Aatrox, who does get something back after all of that action, I suppose, and puts himself at 5-4, having completed that Blade of the Ruined King, and looks like he's going to be going for a Randuin's Omen with the Giant's Belt and the Chain Vest there. That would be quite a good pickup against the enemy team, who are also fairly attack speed reliant in the Yasuo, Volibear, and Tristana. The Volibear being attack speed reliant, he has to get 3 auto attacks off before he can use his Execute, if I recall correctly. And thus, if you can slow those auto attacks, it means his Execute is slower in coming out. As 3 members of Purple Team are here in the bot lane, with Morgana landing the snare to Volibear and then ulting once she gets close enough. The Volibear popping his ult and trying to do enough damage to the Lucian to bring him down, but does not have enough time to be able to do that before he goes down himself. The Purple Team having more than enough members to break through the tankiness the Volibear has. The Jarvan, though, now that backup has arrived, is turning onto the Lucian, doing a bunch of damage to him, and the Yasuo takes him out. The Jarvan does go down in the end to the Malphite, who ults in, but the Malphite going down quite quickly himself, not being the tanky Malphite that you usually see, is AP, and instead is fairly squishy, as that's a quadra kill for Yasuo. Too bad. Aatrox is up in the top lane fighting this Tristana, or else it might have been a pentakill, but the Tristana looks like she's going to be going down. Yes, going down to that Aatrox, who takes her out with the Blade of the Ruined King active, and the active on his ult. The ult actually doing damage to everyone around him when he activates it, as well as a Blades of Torment. A bunch of burst all in one little instant there, enough to enough to break through the Tristana's health bar before she can lifesteal any of it back. Yasuo, though, after getting his Quadra kill, is on the inner turret in the mid lane, throws out the wind wall to block the Lee Sin's Sonic Wave. Lee Sin going to keep chasing after him, though. No, he's not. He's going to turn off as Lucian pops his ult to deal with the minion wave. The Yasuo actually interrupting that culling, though, by throwing his knock-up back onto the Lucian and gets away cleanly after taking the inner tower in the mid lane, putting blue team up 2 turrets now, as previously they were behind 2 turrets for quite a while, but now they are up 2 turrets on the map, as well as up 3 kills and up about 5,000 gold. And a little bit of a turnaround of events here for blue team, who are coming back into the lead in this game. We see Tristana down here, towards the bottom side of the map, going to be taking her red buff. She has rushed the Static Shiv first, and looks like she's going to be going for an Infinity Edge next. Has the components of that in her inventory, the Pickaxe, BF Sword, and Critical Cloak thing. I don't know the name of that, and I really should. As Lee Sin's just taking the white camp and then rotating around to his wolves, going to be clearing his jungle. There's a moment of silence here on the map, as both teams are going to be clearing their own jungles, and neither team really wants to fight right now. They want to just get some money together and complete their next item, as Tristana needs to finish that Infinity Edge, and it looks like Jarvan's going to be going for either a Banshee's Veil or a Spirit Visage. I'm going to be calling a Banshee's Veil, though I could be wrong. A Spirit Visage wouldn't be a terrible buy either, cooldown reduction being very powerful on Jarvan. Just the unique passive of increased self-healing wouldn't actually be all that effective on Jarvan unless he builds some lifesteal, which he has not built into his items this match. The blue side going for the dragon here, which is respawn. They're a little bit caught out, though, as 2 members of purple team have discovered them doing this. Lee Sin on the way down, too. And Malphite's here as well. Jarvan going to flag and drag in, however, as the teleport's coming in from Volibear. The Morgana taken quite low by the burst from Tristana and Jarvan. She goes down in the end to the Volibear, who teleports in onto the ward at the back of the dragon pit. The Malphite turning around with his ult onto the Yasuo, doing quite a bit of damage, but not enough to bring him down as he pops his Zhonya's. The Lucian, auto-attacking whoever he can, does manage to take out the Yasuo, but goes down to about half health, forced to stay on that other side of the wall where he's safe. The Volibear now chasing after the Lucian, as we see the Jarvan and the Sona trying to deal with this Aatrox, who does still have his passive, so he has to be dealt with very carefully. Try and kite him around and not allow him to lifesteal much back very quickly. The Tristana here low on health as well. The Volibear running in, rolling thunder up to that Aatrox, going to have his passive pop by the Aatrox and is dueling him down now. Going to run up to the Aatrox, turn though when he sees the Lucian, who goes down to the Sona. Lucian being quite low on health and getting a bit too close to the enemy team, as the Aatrox is the last one alive for purple team, though actually Morgana and Lee Sin are back alive now, having respawned since the beginning of that very lengthy fight near Dragon Pit. The Lee Sin coming out of base with Home Guard is going to find Sona, who is trying to chase after the Aatrox, who is still low on health. Chased a bit too far though and found a Lee Sin and got shut down for 407 gold by the Lee Sin. Volibear and Jarvan now doing the dragon. Lee Sin finds them back at full health and back here at the dragon pit, going to land the Sonic Wave onto Jarvan and then kick him away and come back in for the execute on the Q of that Sonic Wave. Yasuo forcing the Lee Sin to flash over the wall. The Lee Sin getting knocked up on his way back over the wall, safeguarding to a ward. Manages to smite it and then gets knocked back over the wall. That was a very strange interaction by that knock-up of the Yasuo, which sort of half interrupted the safeguard, but Lee Sin still got far enough over the wall that he could smite the dragon and steal it for purple team, who bring themselves back up to only a 4,000 gold deficit in this game. I say only, but 4,000 gold at 28 minutes is at least not as bad as 4,000 gold at 18 minutes or 8 minutes, heaven forbid. Though as the game scales into the late game, I believe blue team will be getting more and more of an advantage, since Lee Sin is not quite as useful in late game teamfights as Jarvan is. Jarvan able to do a lot of helping with that ultimate. And Yasuo-Jarvan, the Yasuo-Jarvan combo being potentially very deadly in later game teamfights if the Jarvan can land his flag and drag onto multiple members of the enemy team, especially if he lands it onto multiple squishy members of the enemy team, like the Morgana and the Lucian, or the Aatrox and the Lucian, or any combination thereof. The Malphite actually being quite squishy himself as well. Though he does have the Zhonya's now to be able to deal with some of the burst from blue side, as well as a lot of the AD damage, the attack damage, which blue side has built. The only source of magic damage on blue side actually being the Sona support, who's building tank items to be able to survive longer in these teamfights, and thus is not going to be doing very much magic damage. So into the late game, purple team might be able to just build a lot of armor and fight it out that way. However, the Aatrox getting left on in the top lane by the enemy team is going to pop his ult and sustain himself for quite a while with that bonus attack speed and the lifesteal off of his W. The Jarvan flag and dragging in, but getting hit by a bunch of the culling as the Sona nearly takes out the Aatrox, but the Aatrox knocks her up with his Dark Flight and then gets a few more auto attacks onto her, actually glitching under the ground there for a second before starting to base in the bush. As the Jarvan goes down to the Lee Sin, who's on a killing spree. That 2-on-1 gank in the top lane lasting far longer than they thought it would, and turning into a 2-for-0 exchange for Purple Team, since the Aatrox just would not go down very quickly at all, which is one of Aatrox's signature moves there, not dying quickly. As the Volibear runs into the Purple Team who had started up this Baron, the Malphite forced to go into the Zonias from the burst damage from blue side. Purple Team taking 2 kills with them, though, and turning back around onto the Baron. They are all low on health, but it's only the Tristana who is alive right now for the blue side. And it doesn't look like she wants to try and interrupt this Baron at all, as it is going down very quickly to the Purple Team, and the Lee Sin does smite it out. That is a Baron for Purple Team, who bring the gold back to only a 4 or 500 difference now. Back to essentially an even game, though blue side does have more turrets down still, but Purple Team pushing up the mid lane, looking to change that. The Tristana taking her red buff, but the Purple Team deciding to back off from the mid lane, since 2 of their members have had to back after taking that Baron and are not with them in the mid lane, and so it would be quite risky for them to rush only 3 people up the mid lane to try and take that inner turret, where they would most likely be engaged on by the enemy team. Jarvan, Volibear, and Yasuo, as well as Sona if her flash is up, all having very good methods of engaging onto an enemy team, and so they don't want to be caught in a situation where an engagement would mean a lost team fight. Tristana just farming a little bit more, looking to get some more items for herself. Hasn't really gotten very many of the kills in this game yet, is playing a sort of assist decarry, where she is 1, 5, and 11, though. Despite that, she does have a set of 3 items there which will allow her to do quite a bit of damage: the Infinity Edge, the Last Whisper, and the Static Shiv. So she's going to still be able to do damage despite being behind the Lucian, who is about a half an item up on her with the pickaxe, as well as 3 completed items. One of which being the Trinity Force, which is a very expensive item, so really he's a bit farther ahead in gold than that, as the Yasuo Wind Walls a snare from Morgana that would have hit him. Very nice wind wall there. The Lucian brought to fairly low health as he went a bit too aggressive onto the enemy team. Thankfully he didn't get fully engaged on, just took some poke from the Tristana, but went a bit too close to more enemy team members than he thought were there, perhaps, as purple side is pushing up into this mid lane tower. Aatrox is going to be going for the tower dive onto the Jarvan, landing the Dark Flight immediately. Sona getting an ult onto 3 of the enemy team, though, as the culling goes wide, missing nearly all of the bullets, missing the enemy team entirely, as the flag and drag from Jarvan is landing onto 3 of the enemy team members. Malphite landing a wonderful ult there, but it's too little too late. He does manage to take out Yasuo, but already 3 of his team members have dropped, 2 of his team members has dropped as he goes down himself, and that is a double kill for the Lucian for the Tristana, as Lucian is in a bit of a pickle here. Goes down for the shutdown to Volibear. That is an ace for blue team. The purple team entirely going out there in a failed tower dive. Despite having the Baron buff, they did botch up the tower dive. Got ulted by the Sona. Very, very nice ult there by the Sona. The Lucian missed his culling, and there was a very nice combination of the knock-up from Jarvan as well as the Yasuo ulti. The synergy between those 2 champions being fully taken advantage of by blue team as they do push up the mid lane here. The Tristana nearly getting executed by that turret, walking away in time to survive as they get the inhibitor turret. Doesn't look like they'll get the inhibitor, though. They don't have enough people here with enough health, and purple team is respawning now and has home guard boots. The Morgana landing a snare to the Jarvan there. He's going to be running away, using flag and drag to gain some distance. The purple team still chasing with the Lee Sin and the Morgana. The Morgana flashing forward and throwing a snare, but the Jarvan playing happy feet with the purple team is going to be dodging both the snare and the sonic wave from the Lee Sin, sidestepping both of them in opposite directions, and manages to escape with his life. After flag and dragging one more time, the Volibear going to bite that blue buff and take it away from the Malphite, who can only stare at him powerlessly as he rolling thunders away with that blue buff that he probably wanted quite badly on the AP Malphite. The AP Malphite now looking like he's going to be going for a Glacial Shroud. Probably going to be turning that into a Frozen Heart to lower the attack speed of the enemy team even more, as purple team, taking advantage of the fact that a few members of blue team had to back there, is going to be taking the dragon, getting themselves a bit more global gold, trying to bring it back into even with the blue team, who did just get that advantage from the team fight there. Lee Sin landing the sonic wave onto Sona and following up. Not able to make anything out of it, though, as Volibear now in the middle of the enemy team going to be taking a whole bunch of damage. But Volibear, he is quite tanky. The Yasuo landing a good ult on the two members of the other team with his own knock-up as Jarvan ults in to trap what remains of the other team. Lucian all alone now going to be leapt onto by the Tristana and slowed with the rocket jump landing, which does slow people if she lands on them with it. And that is a double kill for Tristana and another ace for blue team, this time without losing any of their members, as purple team chose to focus probably a bit too much of their damage onto the incredibly tanky Volibear, with all the health from that Randuin's Omen and the Frozen Mallet, as well as the resistances of the Randuin's Omen and the Negatron Cloak, which he has built and is probably going to be turning into a Banshee's Veil. Very good item on Volibear there, because it allows you to run towards people, and the first CC they throw at you to try and stop you from running towards their people is going to be nullified and allow you to engage a lot more easily. Blue team pushing up onto the Nexus turrets now, not even waiting for their minion wave, going to be have the Volibear tanking up most of the damage. He is quite tanky. The Jarvan as well tanking some of it from some of the towers. Looks like blue team might be taking home the victory here before purple team can even fully respawn. Three members of them out of the base trying to save their Nexus, but not being able to get there in time. Blue team is going to claim the victory in this match. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Many thanks to DreamDeferred for the use of his replay. If you'd like to get your replay featured on this series, simply check the description. There is a set of instructions there on how to accomplish that. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.